On the anti-doping fallout, I'm joined by Mike Bako. He is the sports managing editor at dailynational.com. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Mike, it's a pretty big deal here. We do have Russia's sports minister today saying that Russia's anti-doping agency will be overhauled, but it's not going to be disbanded. How is Russia's reaction being viewed?
Well, it's very Russian-like. It's going to be overhauled. It's going to be overhauled, in his words, by the same people who are allegedly the perpetrators of this gigantic fraud. You mentioned some of the people that were implicated. This goes to the very top levels. If you read the report, a year-long report, this isn't just some rogue athletes and some rogue coaches doing this. This reaches the highest levels.
Mike,
you're talking about government officials and law enforcement officials.
They're saying it's a state-sponsored doping scandal. Do you agree with that terminology?
Absolutely. If you read the report, there's really a hard line in the sand drawn where they say that this is from the top levels down, where you're talking about officials going to labs where some of these tests were being held, impersonating lab technicians, police officers destroying lab samples before international bodies were going there to collect those samples. So this is not, as I said, rogue athletes or rogue coaches. This is something that was systemic.
And Russia does not seem to be giving the reaction that officials want.
Absolutely not. You know, even in the circumstance of looking ahead to the Rio Olympics, they think that this is just going to be a 90-day ban. They're talking about getting their lab back up online in 90 days and showing this as a good faith gesture. This is something they're going to have to come to grips and see the reality of the situation that they're in.
Well, how likely is it that Russia will be banned from the Rio Olympics?
I think it's very, very likely that they'll be banned, but I think one of the things that may work in their favor is that they were singled out in this report. But you know what? There are other countries that are doing the same exact things. Turkey, another country that rampant speculation that they were doing similar things, but you look at other countries, you look at China, you even look here at the U.S., you know that this is going on. When you say the words track and field, when you say the words Olympics, it usually follows with some sort of corruption or underhanded dealings.
Well, there have been other countries that have been seen as non-compliant, but not to the degree that Russia has been viewed. And the organization can't actually take any action, can it? They can only suggest that the IOC or other sporting bodies take any kind of action. We have seen the IAAF, the International Athletics Governing Body, saying they're banning Russian track and field athletes?
Yeah, again, it's who can do what at this stage. There's a lot of rhetoric going on. We're still 8-9 months away from the Summer Olympics, so there's still a lot of dominoes to fall, but ultimately it does come down to the IOC. It does come down to IOC making this decision against Russia, which could lead to other countries siding with them, boycotting some of the games. And you look at the relationship that they have with Russia, just having the Sochi Games, so there are a lot of intertwined entities here and interests as well.
Off the sports field, what kind of impact does this have? You mentioned boycotts on potentially the Russian economy, on potentially investor sentiment in Russia. Does this kind of scandal flow over into other areas?
It could. It certainly isn't as big of a scandal as, say, a military or governmental scandal. Certainly things that are going on with their relationship with Turkey, with the downed airliner. Those are things, those are real world things that could really affect geopolitics as a whole. But when you look at what's going on with Russia from a sports perspective, so much of their identity is tied to sports, and certainly with Vladimir Putin. So in terms of just their feelings internally and just projecting that out, they use sports as that PR mechanism, that marketing mechanism.
So as you say, Russians are very patriotic, especially when it comes to their Olympic athletes and Olympic pride. With the Olympics potentially being off the table, what can Russia do to fix this, to restore its reputation?
I think they're going to have a long road from, not so much from an internal perspective. I'm sure that there are a lot of Russians that are saying that they're being picked on, they're being singled out, but there's going to be a lot of work, a lot of independent work and a lot of independent access to their labs, to their athletes. That's the only way that they're going to be able to rehabilitate their relationship. And it's not just over a short period of time. We're talking about years, possibly decades before they get into the good graces.
Now, very quickly, does this apply retroactively? Do you see previous Olympic medals potentially being confiscated?
I think the downside to that, or the issues with that, is that if you're doing it for Russian athletes, you have to look at the entire whole of athletes who could come under suspicion. I think that gets a little bit murky. So I think the winners of the medals are probably safe in terms of keeping those, but moving forward, Russia has a lot to deal with and a lot of issues.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to have to leave it there. Mike Bako, sports managing editor at dailynational.com.